Hello, everyone. My name is Manola, and I am the Rose Initiative National Organizer. And today we're having a special guest, Tiommi Luckett, a world-renowned international HIV activist, my auntie in community, somebody who really takes time to cultivate spaces for folks, is here today with me. And today I'm thankful to be able to cultivate a space for her.
Thank you so much, Milani. So glad to be here. How are you?
You know, today has been a day,
Yeah,
but we're moving through it,
we
you
are.
know?
We are.
I'm so happy to have you here. Ever since I met you, there's been a light there that I definitely want to tap into. And I know with a lot of it that we both do, a lot of storytelling work, a lot of crafting and figuring out how people can tell their truth, and teaching folks how to do that is what we usually do. And we're not often at times sitting down to like really tell our own story.
Right.
One day I'll be in the seat telling my story, but for now, I want us to hear about you and the work you do, how you came to do the work, and, then we get to some fun things.
First, I want to say I love you back, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. And so, again, everyone, hi, my name is Tiommi Luckett. I'm a Black trans woman from Little Rock, Arkansas. And the question that was asked to me is, how did I get started into this work? And I've shared this before, in 2012, I was officially diagnosed with HIV. And it was bad enough that I was in Arkansas with no other trans people around me, right? Because by that time, I didn't even have the terminology speaking for myself, right, as living in my truth. I didn't have a role model around anything about the trans community. And so there I was, like always, like I had been, alone, dealing with stuff, being different from the other members of my family, coming from a family of 10 with my mom and dad and 8 children, right? And me being the 6th child. So no one around me dealt with things or saw things the way that I saw things. And so in 2012, I was officially diagnosed with HIV. And of course, I thought my life was over. Only thing that was running through my head were images of HIV that I had seen in like media. So Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
Tom Hanks played the character who had AIDS. And so I thought that that's what my life was going to be like. I was terrified. I kept it on the low. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to start rejecting me any more than they already did, like being different, and later coming to terms with my transness, right? But it was because of that HIV diagnosis that I was actually introduced to the trans community, because when in a couple of years prior to that, like my life was very unsettled. I'm not going to lie. I was not the person that I am today. I was in and out of trouble, and I had gotten in trouble with the law. And I ended up in this rehab center with men. So with like the first week of being there, this outside organization came in and started testing everyone there for HIV. And so at that particular moment in like September, maybe October of 2010, the possibility of me living with HIV was made clear because my body was producing the antibodies to fight HIV, right? And that's what the test tested for. I was not ready to hear that. I could not accept that. I couldn't understand that. And I literally blocked it from my mind until it became noticeable in 2012. So those fears that I had after hearing like about my diagnosis, it was coming true because my body started morphing noticeably, and my lymph nodes became swollen in my neck, and to the point where it was noticeable, like a big hump was in my shoulder. And I started losing my hearing. And because my adenoids were infected because of the HIV, and I hadn't ever had them removed as a child. So I grew up in a house with like 8 people, 8 kids, my mom and dad. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked the fields on the farm. And if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. Right? So I hadn't ever had a problem with my adenoids, I guess, to the point where they had to be removed as a child, right? So my adenoids became infected, and what happened was my sinuses were draining in my ear canals instead of coming out of my nostrils, right? So that was at the time of diagnosis, and actually going through thinking that I had lymphoma because of the swollen lymph nodes, but it wasn't lymphoma, it was HIV.
So at the time, you ruled out that it was HIV, wasn't HIV. When things started happening, you were just like, oh, it's something else.
It's something else, right? Because like I said, I literally blocked HIV out of my mind. And I did that for 2 years, right? Until things started happening with my body that I had to take notice with. I was at the time in my mid 30s. And who's heard of like people just suddenly being able to hear and then just start gradually going deaf?
Yeah.
Right. And so I had a friend at the time who, when I look back on it, it was quite selfish, but she literally like saved my life. She was like, I'm tired of you not being able to hear me. Right. So I was like, she set up an appointment with me at the ear, nose, and throat doctor. I actually got fitted for hearing aids. Right.
Oh, wow.
I had literally blocked HIV as a possibility out of my head. And so I had gotten fitted for hearing aids, and I told the tech, I said, it's gotten worse. And so she was so concerned that she told me to go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor. And then that's when, after he had me to do either an MRI or a CAT scan. And when there was no cancer detected, he asked me if I knew my HIV status. And I said, actually, I don't, right? And so I had to do a confirmatory test. And that's when it came back positive. And I went down the road of trying to find like the life-saving medication that I needed and how could I afford it? Because all I saw was like the prices of it. And the price of that medication for 30 days was more than all of my expenses in a month, right? And so I ended up getting into treatment in 2013. I was diagnosed officially in September 2012. And at the time when I learned about my body producing the antibodies, that first night I went to sleep. Before I went to sleep, I was crying and praying to God, whatever was out there in the universe. If you get me through this, I'll speak and educate the people about HIV in any setting that I can, wherever they'll listen, right? And I got that opportunity in 2014 by being invited to Washington, D.C., to the Department of Health and Human Services building to speak before the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS about Arkansas passing the Affordable Care Act.
And how did you get the opportunity?
Because of the relationship that I had with my doctor, I was given the opportunity. They thought that I would be a good fit to actually go and represent Arkansas, right? But all I was doing was like literally adhering to my regimen, like talking with my doctor, telling the truth with my doctor, listening to my doctor, right? And taking the medicine.
An ideal patient.
Yeah. You know, like I this was new to me. I didn't know anything about HIV, right? So just like a lot of people, out of sight, out of mind, it didn't impact me because it hadn't affected me. And so learning that this thing was now living with me, that's when I had to go and do the research. Like, how am I going to live with this thing, right? Yeah. And so, but I did that work. And in 2014, when I spoke before the people in that room, I was of the mindset that only I was living with HIV in that room. And by this time, me talking with them, I was undetectable, right? So none of the lesions had appeared on my body that I was so afraid was going to happen. And I thought literally it was only me until I sat down and the people in the audience started making their comments. And, oh, I've been living with HIV for this amount of years, or I've been living with HIV for this amount of years. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, like that could be me too. So they became possibility models for me. Never did I expect that I would become a role model for anyone else, right?
Take me back to you getting diagnosed. You say that you went to this conference, you spoke in DC, and you saw other possibilities. When you first got diagnosed, what did you think your life trajectory looked like?
Oh, that's what I was speaking to earlier. When I first got diagnosed, all I thought of was death. And I thought that death was imminent. I thought that it was looming. I thought it was literally right around the corner, right? So to go back, I learned about my HIV diagnosis officially in September of 2012. So from September of 2012 until January of 2013, I hadn't taken any medicine, right? But I was doing the research. So what ended up happening was I was calling around different organizations in Arkansas, in Little Rock specifically, because that's where I was, and I didn't have a car, and I knew that everything was scarce for me. So I needed everything to be as close as possible. And so I ended up getting into treatment, and 4 months later, April of 2013, the doctor for the first time said, like I was undetectable. I didn't know what that meant, right? No one had said what the benefits were to taking the medicine, right? And so that was in 2013 that I became undetectable. It wasn't until 2014 that I met another person that I knew who was living with HIV. And in 2015, that's when Positively Trans was formed. So I got to be introduced to other trans people living with HIV, right? Because from my small town of Helena, Arkansas, it was about 3,000 people, right? I was already the odd one out because I had started looking like a girl, but everyone knew me to be this boy, right? So already people were like whispering behind my back. So I knew that I couldn't talk to them about anything serious that was going on with me because they always made me feel othered, right? And so I trusted one person, but I spoke about myself in the third person. And so I have this friend who found out they have HIV, and they're here in Little Rock and they don't know what to do, and I don't know what to tell them. And she told me, well, if Memphis has services for people living with HIV, then of course the capital city of Arkansas has it, which was the city I was in, Little Rock. So that's what shifted my search and made it more localized in trying to find resources. And I came across the Arkansas AIDS Foundation, who didn't specifically deal with the medical part of it. They dealt with the housing part of it. So all of the things that hadn't impacted me, you know what I'm saying? I began to think, oh my God, who's going to want to live with me? I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to be able to fulfill any dreams of mine. I just saw death. And it wasn't until in 2013 in April when that doctor said to me, Dr. Jefferson at the time said I was undetectable, and then explained to me that the virus was so low in my body that he couldn't find it anymore. And so still didn't quite make the connection to undetectable being untransmittable, meaning I can't pass it on, right? It wasn't until I met Bruce Richards in 2015 when he came back from the International AIDS Conference in Paris, where the scientists were talking about this and people had known about it for years. America was slow. So he brought that message back from that conference to the United States. And he had read a blog that I wrote where, after hearing that I was undetectable, I knew that I wasn't a danger to anyone, right? But there hadn't been any confirmation. And so he wanting to start the undetectable equals untransmittable campaign, you equals you. You equals you. I was a founding member of that campaign.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because he was inspired by the words that I said in a blog about myself and not being a danger to anyone. So he handpicked me and some other people within the HIV community. And we set off on like this U equals U campaign in America. And it really took off. He took it even further into like 92 other countries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm hearing a lot of I'm at the right place at the right time moment. Do you feel like that resonates with you?
Yes. I mean, the right place, right time, and people hearing this in the future, y'all may look at me crazy, but for me, my HIV diagnosis was the thing that turned my life around. It really was. And so I believe that, it was destined to be. I don't know, maybe I could have gotten it through other means, but with my HIV diagnosis, it had me in that room in HHS, right? It had me connected to people who were connected to Bruce. And that's the Well Project, and I'm still a member of the Well Project today. And so I got connected to other women living with HIV, and even as a trans woman, cisgender women saw the similarities in our lived experiences, right? Even though there are clear differences, like I'm not delusional, right? And so I think that's where a lot of our work gets lost in the messaging is that, one, we're the people sharing the message, and two, because we look the way that we look, our cisgender counterparts don't want to hear it coming from us, because what I've run into in doing this work is that people will become jealous of you for absolutely no reason. I'm just trying to spread the message. I made a promise to my God of my understanding that if I get through this, then I'll go wherever you send me. And that's the journey that I've been on, right? But yes, having to be in the right place at the right time, I think that it was destined for me. I truly do. And I know that I wouldn't have the things that I have today had it not been for that HIV diagnosis. Because I never would have met the people that I met, right? I still would have been in ignorance of what HIV actually is. I probably would have been one of the people thinking that HIV was a gay man's disease, right? Only. But HIV is a human condition. It impacts all of us. And none of us are safe. And so we are only safe when we take control of our sexual health. And so that's been a part of my journey as well. But definitely being in the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time. You were at the founding of Positively Trans. Fast forward to now, you are the one who runs Positively Trans. Walk me through that process of you coming on to Positively Trans, somebody hearing your story, seeing your light, and being like, I need that.
Yeah.
To you being the one to spearhead this work now. How did that come to be?
Okay. Well, I met Cecilia Chung in 2014 at that meeting at HHS.
Okay.
She was one of the trans people in the room. Okay. And so when I went out to grab a cup of coffee, she followed me. She introduced herself to me. I learned that there was nothing wrong with me, that I wasn't this anomaly in the fabric of America, because up until I met her, I literally thought I was the only one, right?
Wow.
That something is wrong with me. And here she was, this Asian woman in front of me, telling me that she's a trans woman, and, just sharing bits and pieces of herself, her history with me. And so that day concluded, I flew back home, but we exchanged contact information, right?
Yes.
And so I got a call from her out of the blue one day, and she reintroduced herself to me, told me where we met, and told me this idea she had about bringing in trans people with HIV and into the same space and doing a needs assessment, and wanted to know if I wanted to be a part of this national steering committee. At the time, I was like, sure, yeah, let's do it. Because in my mind, I got to make good on this promise that I made to my God, right?
Yes, you do.
So let's do it, okay? I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anyone going into the room. Let's just make that clear. So I get to Chicago, came to Chicago.
Come on, Chicago.
I know,
Full circle.
right? So came to Chicago, and I was introduced into the other members of that she wanted to be a part of Positively Trans. And at the time, it was 8 of us total.
Wow.
Yeah, just 8. And there were like maybe 10 people in the room, but there was staff at TLC at the time. And so some note takers were there. And also Lauren Prague and Bree Campbell from the University of Michigan were there to do the research, to help us with the research, right?
More connections.
Yes, good connections. So we were in that room and we met for a day, and in that room we talked about like what we saw, what we experienced as trans people living with HIV. And some of it was so heart-rendering that I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing right here. I found my people, right? I found where I belong. That's what I thought to myself. This is where I belong. And so we started doing the work together. We came out. One of the things that came out of our time together was little videos that we did with Story Center, where we created the story that we wanted to tell about ourselves. We did the voiceover, we selected the images, and we did like a moving picture, right?
That.
And so they're on the Transgender Law Center website. And so there should be like 50 videos now, because it was a thing that kept going, right? Once members of the trans community saw it, other members who were living with HIV came forward, right? And so it became this huge thing. That's one thing. And then another thing that came out of our time together was the needs assessment. And so we were able to get the responses of 147 people who identify as trans and living with HIV. And so we drafted up our survey from those responses, right? And put that out into the world. And we took that back to Washington, where we sat with the different offices within the Department of Health and Human Services. So a reintroduction for me to these different offices.
But this time you're doing policy work.
This time I'm doing policy work, and I'm coming with the research that these people in these medical fields and in these places said that they didn't have. So we brought that with us. So we were listened to, right? People saw us as an active force in the HIV community, in the HIV ecosystem, right? And so here we were, these trans people of color living with HIV, talking about it. And so that was 2015, 2016. I think we distributed the survey World AIDS Day in 2016, which is December 1st. And so another thing that we did, well, after the survey, we had to talk about the survey. So that was the leadership development part about it, right? And so getting us comfortable, getting us to the point where we're comfortable talking about what our findings were, as well as like who we were in the movement work in front of people.
You do it so well.
Thank you. Thank you. I was taught very well, and so I took that to heart because I know that we are definitely a part of so many movements, more than just HIV. We're a part of so many movements where we just don't get the opportunity to be heard. And so in the beginning, what I did was I mimicked what I saw, right? And what I saw was Black trans women demanding things, and they were loud about it. And they were calling people out on like their BS, right? And so when I did it, it became a problem.
Yes.
I guess I was a little too good at it, a little too convicting of what I was talking about. And so people, they actually grew like scared to work with me because they thought that because this was the path that I was on at the time, they didn't think that I would ever change. And so they were actually scared to make a mistake around me, right? And so it stopped me from being able to be in a lot of spaces because while Cecilia Chung recognized that I was this emerging leader with this incredible skill set, right? So she wanted me to start working at TLC. She literally tried to hire me, but It didn't go through. I applied. I went through a round of interviews, and it didn't happen, right? Because at the time, prior to COVID, they wanted me to take the position but move to California.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know anyone in California.
Yeah, that's a big step from Arkansas.
Yes, from Arkansas. And so I had been flown out to California, right, because of the work that I was doing with Positively Trans. And we met in Berkeley. We would meet in Oakland. We would meet in San Francisco.
Damn.
Yeah,
that Oakland office that was in the basement of that.
Yes.
Yes.
On Broadway. On Broadway. Exactly. So we would go there, and everything was like, it was a whole culture shock. Truly.
Definitely.
Coming from Arkansas, first time I had seen anything vegan, right? I'm not going to lie.
That's
I'm
real.
like, what is happening, right? Like, why are these people only eating plants? I thought that something was seriously wrong with people. And I was like, I can't come here and assimilate to that. Like,
Yeah, that's not you.
That's not me, right? I love some chicken. I love some mashed potatoes. Throw some gravy on it too.
Right.
Like that's where I come from.
Yeah.
And so, but I had my first Impossible Burger today, and it was really good. So
Honestly,
I'm learning.
I do love a good Impossible Burger. I like eating vegan meat.
Yeah.
Or chicken or whatever you call it, right? In Chicago, there's a lot of good like vegan places that like you don't know it's vegan unless they tell you.
Unless they tell you.
Yes. Yeah. And like that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get it and I'm like, I can taste the herbs.
Yeah. And so it wasn't bad though, but for me it's been progress, not perfection, right?
Yes.
And so I took a job somewhere else at another organization. And
would you name that organization?
Positive Women's Network USA.
Okay.
So PWN USA. I had started working with PWN. They called me in because they were one of the organizations that were interested in working with me as well.
Okay.
Because they were a women-centered organization, women-led organization within the HIV movement, right? And they were...
And it wasn't trans.
And
so you're being sought after just in general, letting people know.
Yeah, because... they were like, oh my God, this is our end to work with the trans community, right? And so...
highly sought after.
Highly sought after. I'm not going to lie, because I was in spaces. Once I accepted the invitation to go to the PACHA meeting, Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS,
yes,
people started picking me up. They were calling me. Like my contact information was being shared, and people at PWN inviting me to the summit. The people at Zero Project inviting me to HIV is Not a Crime Training Academy. And so 2015 was really busy for me. And when I look back in retrospect, I learned a lot from cisgender people in the HIV community, right? I just happened to be a person who identified as trans.
Right.
And so when it came to like crafting the message of HIV awareness, I learned that from cisgender people because they were already on it. They had been doing this work for years. They had implemented changes that I now enjoyed the benefits of, right? And so it made sense that I be connected with them. And they hired me in 2017 to be a part of their communication team because people have always loved the way that I speak, right?
You do it so well.
Thank you.
And I didn't recognize that until, like, I always saw your light, just in like different rooms and different spaces, and the way you care for people, the way you hold people, the way you show up for everyone. It wasn't until you did the Rosebud, and like this is the first time I ever like heard you tell your story.
Yeah.
And I started crying, and I was moved to tears.
I know. I appreciate that.
And honestly, I was like, wow. And you did it like so like very candidly.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't rehearsed. You didn't need no prompts, no like speakers. I was like, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
She's been doing it for a long time, and it shows. Like the way you facilitate the room, the way you navigate a room, and like people really draw to you. That's a certain power that a lot of folks don't have.
Yeah.
And some folks are jealous of, right? And so I think when you know your purpose,
yeah,
it's easier to
Yeah.
move with that.
Exactly.
And you've been doing it so eloquently.
Thank you.
And it's been such a joy to see that.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I grew up in the church, right? And for me,
What denomination?
Baptist.
Okay.
So there were some good things that it taught me, right? And it was actually a 12-step program, AA, that taught me even further to take what I need and leave the rest, right?
That's my favorite thing to say.
Yes, I'm going to take what I need and I'm going to leave the rest, because it doesn't benefit me, right? So even in AA, I wasn't the type of, I didn't do certain things that other people did inside of AA. That wasn't my experience, right? But when they talked about it, it just showed me how bad things could have gotten for me had I stayed on that same path, right? And so being a Baptist church member taught me that I can take what I need and leave the rest.
Yeah.
And so one thing that it taught me was that what's from the heart reaches the heart. And so when it comes to the work, it's not about me. It has never been about me. I was just the vessel that God chose, that my God, the God of my understanding, chose, right, to deliver the message. So it was always about those people coming up after me. If I can help someone dodge something that I myself experienced and I made it on the other side, right, because I know that a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, most people wouldn't have made it, right? They wouldn't have made it. And so when I'm in these rooms, one, I see the humanity in people.
Yes.
I do, and it's not about me being this leader or being the facilitator. It's not. It's more about like people trusting me to be the one to guide this process, to trust that I'm not in it for selfish reasons. I'm really not, right? The only thing that was selfish about me was the way that I worked my 12-step program, because it helped me to be the person that I am for people in the HIV community. I went from an AA meeting to Washington because AA told me to tell what it was like, what happened, so what was the intervention, and what it's like now. And that's what I talked about when I talked about the Affordable Care Act. Before the Affordable Care Act, I was a person who didn't have insurance, but I had previously been diagnosed with HIV. And with the Affordable Care Act, that meant that all of my HIV care was taken care of, right? I was so close to having comprehensible health care. But there was another little caveat to my existence, which was being trans, right? And so we have been, as a trans person living with HIV, I've been fighting to get like the trans care is being recognized in a part of the Affordable Care Act, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where Section 1557 comes from, where it is illegal for providers who receive federal dollars to discriminate on me simply because they have an issue with my existence, right? So I did what I set out to do.
You did. It's amazing to hear you talk about all of the narrative shifts, the policy working that you've been doing over the years, coming in and it just like being authentically you and like people like really understanding and seeing that light and figuring out like, like I can do this because people are believing in me. This is a vow I made to God that like I'm going to do this and He's making a way. And you often speak about like the importance of storytelling and HIV advocacy. How can stories from people living at the margins shift narratives in high stakes like this Committee case?
So the Committee case is right now is focusing on trans youth out of Tennessee, right? And denying gender affirming care for trans youth. And so right now they're acting as if every child identifies as trans and it's something that they're trying to stop, right? It's not even a huge number of us. We just happen to be this hot button item, right? And what worked in one state, one city, became a blueprint for other states and other cities. But when it comes to someone like me, who was Black and knew that something was different with me, like as a child, one, you're taking away the ability for a child to think for themselves.
Yes.
Because I knew that I was different than my brothers and sisters. I just didn't have the name for it, right?
Yes.
I didn't have the name for it. So one, you got to believe kids when they tell you what's going on with them. And you have to support them, right? So right now you have all of these leaders who are basically attacking kids. And what's going to end up happening is, we're going to see an onslaught if things like this actually happen, because it's at the Supreme Court right now.
Yes.
To be heard or to be decided upon, right?
I think we'll find out like June, July.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is taking it to the highest court of the land. Now what the Supreme Court says will have a trickle down effect
To the states.
and to the states and to the different regions within the states. And so there will be a precedence, even more of a precedent set for them to discriminate against a subsection of the community, making it legal,
Yes.
And I hate to say this because I don't want it to happen, but there's going to be an influx of like suicides. And the trickle down effect is not just kids that they're going to come after. It's going to be us too.
Yes.
I
think they start with the most vulnerable.
Yes.
Which is the youth and elders. But youth, in this particular standpoint, the youth is like trans youth is like a subsection of a subsection of a subsection. Like, that number is like so microscopic.
Right.
It's ridiculous to see for like the last 5-10 years, especially within the last 5 years, how many anti-trans legislation is in the states. Like there's over like 100 or 200 bills like in a year.
Yeah.
For like a population that makes up almost less than 1%.
Yes, exactly. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not a good strategy. It's not a good tactic. It is fear mongering. It is bullying. It is legalizing discrimination. It is anti-Blackness. It's violence, all wrapped up into this pretty little package and being shared between the different states. And the first time that something like that happened that I became aware of was Senate Bill 2 or 1 in North Carolina, right? That was most recently overturned.
Yes.
Saying, it was a whole bathroom bill. And
the bathroom bill's been going on since 2016.
I mean, if you want to be in the bathroom with me, just say that.
Right.
Just say that. But
Negations.
I want you to be open to who you really are. Live your truth. But some people are so their truth has them in a stronghold. And I'm like, who has a heaven or a hell to put you in?
What I feel like most people are passively transphobic. Because I think it's like
because
passively.
they're fighting something internalized.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but I hate to say this, but that's truly what I believe. I believe that the Republicans want us to be in the bathrooms with them. I truly believe that.
Yes, you do.
That's what I believe. I'm like, people are so petty. They're so petty that they will do anything. There's no length that they're willing to go to get what they want, right? Yeah. And so, but you got to remember that while I'm in the bathroom with the husband, who I don't appear threatening to, on the flip side of that, you have trans men who are in the bathroom with your daughter.
Yes.
And your child.
Yes.
And your wife and your mother who look like me.
Yes.
But because of genitalia, which you don't know about.
You don't. So like that leaves room for
trans men to be attacked.
That leaves room for cis men to go into the bathroom because
exactly.
It's not like you're checking.
Exactly.
You're not checking. And even with like the bills and all this conversation about the bathroom and like trans folk using the right bathroom that goes against like the birth certificate or whatever, the people that I see getting stopped the most are cis women. I've yet to see a trans woman get stopped at the bathroom in a video.
I'll say it here first, folks. I use the bathroom in every airport, don't care where I am. Okay? I use the women's restroom. Nobody has ever stopped me. Nobody has ever batted an eye at me. And nothing has ever happened that wasn't intended to happen,
Right.
which was for me to relieve myself, wash my hands, and get onto my flight. That was the only thing that happened.
Because what I find to be interesting, there's all these bills around caution, and these are cautions to narratives that are not even true. There has not even been one story, public size.
Where is it?
That
Where is
a
it?
trans person went in the bathroom
You would
and harmed
think-
somebody.
You would think
There at least could be one. There's not
that
even
they
one.
would have an example.
An example. There's not an example because it
No.
doesn't happen.
No.
For the most part, like the average trans person who, because keep it 100, most trans people, particularly trans women, will never know what it's like to pass.
Right.
And so, therefore, to say like most trans girls, if they do go out in public and they're out in the day and they're trying to relieve themselves, they're going to the bathroom real quick and to get out. They're not lingering.
Yeah,
They're not having
exactly.
a kiki, a caca.
No.
Like that's not what's happening.
No.
And I think we're hearing all these oppositions and all these fear mongering tactics from people who don't even know a trans person.
They don't know a trans person.
They're
I mean,
going
when
off
you
what they're
look at
thinking, or they're
it-
thinking off media.
How many billions of people are there in the world?
So-
Right.
What?
And
8
okay.
Yeah.
And like of the entire population,
Yeah.
you run the risk of running into a trans person maybe once in a lifetime.
Once.
The average person,
Average.
you know, unless you're in a sanctuary city where trans people tend to go,
Yes.
because it's more
Unless it's
affirming.
Seattle, it's likelihood of you running into and it's no shade to Seattle. Unless it's Seattle, the likelihood of you running into a trans person is very slim.
Right. Right.
It's not common.
Yeah, and it's not common where I'm from either. That's
Yeah.
why after I started walking in my truth, that's when I saw other people like come up after me, right? I've since lost 2 people that I grew up with
Yeah.
from my hometown. And so there's not many of us left, right? And so in my city where I live now, a young trans girl was murdered. And it's just disheartening, you know, like, and people want to always blame the victim, but doing a little rerouting here.
Yeah.
Me being someone who is sex positive and lived alone on my own for years, right? I was single, so there were different men who came,
Yes.
you know, to visit me, and I didn't have to hide anything from them. People know what they want. They know what they want. Sometimes they are ashamed of what they want, or they're made to feel ashamed for what they want, you know? And so it's in those instances when they're led by what other people think of them that puts us in danger, right? And so most recently, a guy had been trying to get my attention for months. And so because he kept trying to see me at night, I'm like, well,
That's an uncomfortability.
yeah, it's like uncomfortable.
It feels
Like,
unsafe.
what are you doing? And so I asked him if he had a girl, and he's like, no, I don't have a girl, but my brother lives with me, and he doesn't know that I'm DL. Okay, well, I don't want you DL.
DL.
I don't. I want you to be comfortable in your skin.
Hello.
Like I'm comfortable in my skin, because
You
the
see it.
reason that you're attracted to me is because I'm so comfortable in my skin, right? But on the flip side of that, if we were out in public and had already done our due, and if somebody saw that I knew you, you would have a whole problem with that.
A whole problem.
A whole problem with that. So
And
those
that-
types of men are not safe for us.
They're dangerous. So dangerous.
Yes.
And I gave a trade or DL back in 2022
Thank you.
because honestly, that was like, to me, it's like young girls' game. Figuring out.
It was cute for a minute.
It was cute.
I'm not gonna lie. I lived.
cute. It's
'Cause
cute.
I'm like, oh, I can have the roughest
The-
piece of trade
right.
out here.
The
real?
roughest.
That killer,
Right.
you know, like for real.
Did 20 years upstate.
Baby, I know that feeling,
Yes.
so I think it's a part of all of our,
It's growing.
yeah, it's part of all of our growth,
Like, it's maturity to know that, like, I've done, especially, also the girl, I'm like, especially the girls who I'm like, I know who still entertain those people, that's like been doing it, like transitioning for so long. I'm like, you put too much time and effort into becoming the person you are to literally go back into the closet for somebody.
right.
Or like, I hear people who are like, oh yeah, I'm dating somebody like piece of trade or DL. I'm like, you're not dating them.
No, you're
can't,
not.
You can't be dating
And
them.
you're lying to
You're
yourself.
lying to yourself.
You're delusional, because he will have no problem illustrating to you in front
How much
of
he does not
anyone
know you.
how much y'all are not dating.
To your detriment.
To your detriment. And I realized that, one, I have a lot to lose.
You do.
Two, and two, I think I should reverse that. One, I deserve better. I deserve
At
better.
the basis of it,
Yeah.
if not nothing more, you do deserve better.
Yeah. And two, like, I don't have time for this, right? I know what I want. So why would I deny what it is that I really want, just for a few moments of sometimes not even gratification? I'm not even gratified,
Right.
not
sometimes
satisfied.
it's not good.
None of that, like, oh my God, like, I really wasted my time and my enema for this. Really?
Come on. I love you. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with dealing with folks who are not ready to live in their truth.
Yeah.
And I do find it that people who are the loudest tend to be the most ones with the stuff to hide.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? This is like a heavy time that we're living in, and we're honestly just figuring out how to navigate this. What gives you the motivation to, like, or the hope to move through this with all this legality uncertainty, and like what strategies are you trying to prioritize during this time?
So thank you for that. When it comes to everything that's being thrown at us, because you were speaking to it earlier about all of the anti-trans bills that are coming out, right? Okay, well, that was what we were feeling like in our different areas in different states. This is coming out of the federal government, right?
It's different.
It does hit different. But as a Black trans woman from Arkansas,
Yes.
none of what they're doing is new.
Come on,
it's not
Southern.
new to me, right? Like, I have been navigating these systems, okay? Where the only thing that's different now is my employment. And because of my employment, I don't feel what is coming out of the federal government. That's the difference.
Yes.
And that's just my experience. Okay. Well, yours as well, because we're in the same place, right? So we're not feeling the impacts of what it means for people to throw trans people to the side because they were getting money from federal funds.
I've heard like 3 stories in the last week of trans girls getting fired.
Yeah.
And like, even when I did the Rosebud convening, right, in Little Rock, and all the girls' stories were like, I can't get a job. I go to like 5 job interviews a day, like a week, and like, I'm never getting a call back. And I'm like, and most of the jobs I'm hearing them apply for, I'm like, really entry-level basic jobs.
Yes.
I'm like, it's not like they need degrees. It's not like they need tenure or anything. Like, these folks are like, no, like, I'm doing this and this is like happening. Like, people are literally not hiring folks.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a time where folks are needing community in a different way. We're seeing folks root ourselves in grassroots. I know we both do national work, right? Yes. But with the Rosebud convening was my hope and like my start in doing more local stuff. Like going to the city, figuring out what the girls need, doing the surveys, figuring out, and Little Rock was the perfect ground for that.
Yeah.
I also like have family ties there, and so like it just made sense. It felt like a coming of home in a sense.
Yeah.
And to hear all of the trials and like what the girls are going through, whether like it's immigration, because there's a heavily immigration population there for all the migrants that came in, and I think there's a lot of room for Little Rock, or particularly Arkansas in any way, like to grow. And I know like they're trying to grow it more these days. There's like building new things. There's new development here and there. But as somebody who has rooted their work and come from the South, and the South has been doing most of the heavy lifting for years, and all the work, all the civil rights work we do, and like gender affirming care, like whether it's like racial work or immigration work, the South has been the ones to hold the mantle and have been doing a lot of work. How do you feel like that will shift if this does pass?
So, experience is a great teacher, right? And so, I and other people of color from the South have been sharing our experiences for a long time, right? But because people didn't personally feel what it is that we were feeling or experience what it was that we were experiencing, they really couldn't grasp. They couldn't wrap their minds around the discrimination that we were facing, right? Because people in other places, the North, some parts of the Midwest, especially in the West, they have these protections in place, right? One, because there was a huge community of people there, right? And so those people have been fighting for a long time. So when it comes to the South, and if stuff like the Skirmity thing passes, right, which the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land, right? Then more people will understand what it feels like to have uncertainty and to feel abandoned, right? And so right now, even with Trump getting into office, those people that experienced that immediately, that were trans, were not Black trans people.
Right.
They were non-Black trans people and white trans people who felt like their distance from Blackness was going to save them. And it's not. We're all up for grabs. When I learned the mantra, none of us are free until we're all free, it resonated with me. And some people, they think that, oh, I do this work and literally it's a paycheck. It's not your experience, right? And so it's gonna hit different when the thing that you claim to love to do, you know, you love to be this advocate for people, but because you're not experiencing that, but when you start experiencing that, you begin to lose hope, right? And back to your other question, what brings me hope? The fact that I see that, one, Black people can work together, right? When it came to voting this election, 92% of all Black people who voted against Donald Trump, right? And so they were listening, and I know now, even with Trump being in the office, people who are not impacted by these anti-trans pieces of legislation, they are feeling it, right? You spoke to that earlier when you said that cis women are being accosted in the bathroom. You know,
there's all these laws or bills trying to make sure that men don't go into the bathroom,
right?
But because these laws,
you got men being called to the bathroom to escort a woman out. Right? Like, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense, like, at all. So what brings me hope? What brings me hope is the fact that I know that Black people can work together. Black people didn't cause this. So my people are out dancing in the streets with their boots to the ground. So we're doing grassroots in a whole different way, right? We're finding joy. And so
I love to see it.
I love to see it. I'm not lying. So did I jump on the bandwagon? Exactly. I got my cowgirl hat. I got my cowgirl boots. I don't wear them, but I'm ready. You know, and I'm learning the dance.
Come on, hold down.
You know, let's do a trail ride. So the fact that we're celebrating together, like we're all at each other's cookouts, like we're being the support that we need, because at the end of the day, it was us as the comforter and the support that we needed way back from the civil rights.
That's what I love about the South. Y'all have cookouts.
We have cookouts.
Nobody up north can afford a home.
Right. You know, oh my God. Now y'all may have protections, but y'all don't have the cookouts. Yeah, y'all are on rooftops, which is so foreign to me.
You know, there's a certain, like, I have like an appreciation for a rooftop just because, like, I can overlook the city. But I do miss a old school cookout, and I haven't been to one in years.
My God, they're so much fun.
And they're like, yes, I remember my childhood was so fulfilled with them. And I haven't been to one in years. And I'm like, nobody has a home. And I'll be looking around like, where you live? Where you live? I'm like, nobody owns houses anymore. I was like, we're all in apartments like that don't have a yard or like a back community space for people to have. It's just so different. And like, there's a lot of perks to living in the city. A lot of perks to like living in like, like these protections that we have, like the comfortability. I always say like, if you are a non-Black trans person, go to Seattle.
Really?
Yes. If you are a Black trans person, come to Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, Seattle is like, you can have somebody with a full-grown beard and a BBL walking down the street. No problem. Like, it's just liberal there.
Yeah.
And like, yes, you have a few folks who are like, who bat an eye or might say something, but like, there's a level of protection there. But I will say, in the last couple of years since I've been gone, with all these anti-trans legislation, like, it is touching Seattle still. Even like the most liberal cities are being affected because I'm hearing my girlfriends going out getting beat up. That was never a thing.
Yeah, I heard the same thing in New York.
Yeah,
I heard about most recently a trans man getting beat up because and the police got involved.
Yeah,
and furthered the damage.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. But all of that is because we have been made to be public enemy number one. It's this anti-trans rhetoric. It's the fear mongering. It's the outright hate and the evilness of men, right? And so, I mean, it's so much that it's at a point where even Christians are starting to doubt, like, the belief of their God.
Yeah, I think one, depending on how you're raised, we all have different gods, right? Central beliefs in a lot of religions, but I think people are coming to figure out, like, there's a little too much hate in a religion that is supposed to be rooted in love and sacrifice.
So it goes back to me saying, take what I need and leave the rest.
And I tell everybody that. Every time I'm like, people be like, oh, there's opportunity. I'm like, go for it. And they're like, well, what if I don't? I'm like, if it doesn't work out, if for some reason, like, there's something that comes up and it doesn't, like, it's not feeding your soul, there's something at least you'll find from it.
Yeah.
Take what you need.
You'll learn.
And
you'll gather experience.
You'll gather experience.
Yes.
And you can use it. Not everything is a one size fit all. I'm tired of people expecting things to be a one size fit all.
We're not a monolith.
We're not a monolith.
But do people even understand what that means? That
they
means
don't.
that we are not the same.
We're literally not the same.
We are literally not the same person.
And people always talk about wanting to be an individual. Then you should know when you go somewhere, not everything's gonna be to your liking unless you curated it.
Right. And this who's better at it, who's safer by being pretty and passable. None of that shit is gonna make us be safe.
That is a conversation. And probably the conversation we'll end off on. Okay. Let's get this conversation about possibility. Because this is a hot topic. There's been talks within the trans community that one, non-binary people are the reason for what is happening, because apparently they gave confusion. And then that it's the non-passable girls who, quote unquote, don't put in any effort. And I'm gonna let you go on that because I'm getting choked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how I feel about that. Okay, so I'll say this to the camera because today I think I'm pretty. Today I put on makeup. I put on makeup for y'all and for you, right?
Thank you. I love you.
And so
for that.
I'm not one that walks around with makeup. And there are times when I have my non-binary phase, right? Like being in Arkansas, I don't have access to electrolysis. I don't have access to laser surgery, right? And so also I realized that being able to like grow out hair on my face has somewhat been like a safety measure, a defense mechanism, right? Because one, I don't always like to be accosted. I don't always like to be catcalled.
Yes.
Right? And so sometimes when men are just rejected, like that makes them angry, violent.
I've been attacked so many times, not because of people knowing I'm trans,
But because you didn't give them the attention,
I didn't give them the attention
they wanted. Yeah. And so when it comes to the non-binary community, I'm able to do as I want. So I'm not going to try to impose any restrictions on how they go about their daily lives.
Yes.
Right. But what I will say is this. I'm on the binary side, right? So people will automatically like assume Black woman when they see me.
Of course.
Right?
You see the material.
You know? And so, and I'm okay with the pronouns that are thrown at me, which is she, her, and hers.
Yes.
Now, when you describe like a non-binary person in Seattle,
yes.
right? There's a specific look. Okay. But also people who are looking very binary are identifying as non-binary. Right? So then you got, but non-binary is still under the trans umbrella. Right?
Yes.
And so some people, all they hear is trans. You said non-binary trans, they ain't paid attention to that first adjective.
No.
Okay. They paid attention to trans.
Yeah.
And so say for instance, you appear male, but your pronouns are they, them.
Yes.
Or you appear female and your pronouns are they, them.
Yeah.
Right. And then because you know
what your pronouns
are, now you want to get defensive and you're automatically offended because someone called you a pronoun in which you appear.
Yes.
Right? It's just like TSA. It's just like TSA. So let's talk about the real ID for a minute, right?
I just got mine like in the mail like last week.
So when I go for the real ID, chances are it's going to have M on it.
Yes.
Well, I've already experienced that. Okay. So having an F on my ID became a privilege that I enjoyed, right?
I had that too in Seattle. When I moved here, they took it away.
They took it away.
Okay.
You're still traveling.
Yes.
Because what does the TSA agent do? They look at you, they choose female, and they send you through the scanner if you don't have TSA pre-check.
Yeah.
Right? So humans are visible creatures.
They go off what they see.
And
if you are not somebody who lives within the binary,
then you're delusional. I'm sorry. Some people are delusional. Some people are in their own world.
In what way?
In the fact that
they're expecting people to know.
They're expecting people to automatically know.
Yes, that is.
Like that's delusional.
That is a little. Like,
that's dangerous.
That is dangerous.
And that's dangerous. And it has danger for more than just you in that moment.
Dangerous implications. And I feel like a lot of the times when we see all these videos go viral, it's not the Black girls who are doing it.
Right.
Because the Black girls know how to navigate. Because one, we're also navigating Blackness. They're navigating our transcendence. So there's an extra level of security and safety that we always put into our appearance.
Thank you.
And so we're seeing a lot of particularly even with social media, like it's always the non-Black trans girls who are getting the work done for free. As we're seeing, like people who 9 times out of 10, the people already have some type of privilege. There's only been a handful of times, not even a handful, like 2 or 3 times I can name of like those girls actually were impoverished, and those girls were actually navigating scarcity, and they got popular, and then they're able to like afford their surgeries and their moans and just like having a platform. But 9 times out of 10, you're platforming somebody who did not need to be platformed.
Exactly.
And
period. Like Caitlyn Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner. There's
Time Warner. I mean, no, not Time. That was Laverne Cox.
That was Laverne Cox.
It was Laverne Cox.
Woman of the Year.
On what was it? Like one of those Italian magazines.
Yeah, she was on Vogue. She was on the cover of Vogue, and then she got nominated. No, she won Woman of the Year for like Sports Illustrated or something, like some type of sports thing, I think. And still a conservative, still a Republican, still speaking negatively on her own experience, which she just started.
That's because people want to distance themselves from the uncomfortable truth.
And you can only do that if you're not Black.
If you're not Black.
A Black person can't do that.
We can't do it. We're not given that opportunity to do it. Because one, we have to make it out of our own neighborhoods.
And that is when the girls are able to move out, because one, one of the girls just moved from Little Rock to here, and that in itself is an achievement to
Exactly.
leave your neighborhood, to leave your city that you live in, and to venture out into like a city that costs so much. Because Little Rock compared to Chicago, that's a huge jump.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and prices.
Yeah.
So that's a huge achievement. And like, but like the girls are having to do that. Nobody wants to leave their city.
No.
If they don't have to. Like that's their comfort.
Right.
But the folks are honestly having to do so because of all of the legislation that's coming out. People are no longer safe in their own communities.
They're not safe.
And that's a tragedy in itself.
Yeah.
And at the very least, people should be able to feel for that.
That's honestly, I don't know how people are going to accept this, but that's why I don't do the marches, because I do enough work to where I'm already visible, and I've had to safeguard myself
You do.
in doing this work. So I've had to pivot like how I move. One thing I don't do is I don't tag myself, like geotag myself in the moment anymore, because people would come to where I was.
I don't do that no more either.
You know, and so these are life lessons that you go through in doing this work, you know, and people were looking at it for the wrong reason, thinking that, oh, you're always flying, oh, you're always in a hotel. They thinking that, you know, for somehow I must be paying for all of this.
No,
I was being tokenized.
But my uncle thinks I'm a prostitute. He told my mom that. He was like, he has to be.
Yeah, because how are you able to do this? Like, yeah.
I was like, I keep telling y'all what I do.
Yeah.
They don't believe me.
Yeah. And so, you know what? I went through that too. I did, like growing pains with my family. Like people didn't believe that I was doing the work that I was doing. And if I was doing the work that I was doing,
Right.
why is it that I'm broke?
Because
this is thankless work.
When I tell you, it's literally, you can have people doing, especially the ones who are doing like mutual aid only.
Yeah.
They're like service-based organizations. They get paid less than us. They're doing literally physical more work than we are. And doing nonprofit work is literally, like I said, it's not for a profit.
No.
So therefore, you do not make a lot. And for the folks who are able to scrape up a couple changes and the dollars and have some money, we're often being asked, especially queer folk.
How are you able to afford this?
Yeah,
like
always the ones
what?
who are able to like. We're always being asked. Like I'm the breadwinner in my family, particularly in my immediate family, and then I'm also the power of attorney for both my mother and brother who are incarcerated. My great grandma and my grandma just died 2 years ago, and before that, my grandma was also incarcerated, and so. I lost them within like a year change. And my grandpa died the year prior. So I lost all of them within like the last 3 years. And so navigating having to always be the person that people are expecting to have money. And Chicago has the highest inflation. When I tell you, I had like 3 bags of groceries and my grocery tab was $200. And I was sitting here like, this is wild. And people are still expecting me to have money for them and to send them things.
When your own basic needs are barely being met.
Yet.
You know, and the forces at play, like look at these tariffs. We're feeling this.
Yes.
We are feeling this, right? And we didn't ask for this.
We didn't.
We warned people against this. And because the message came from us, right? We were already marked public enemy number 1. They didn't listen to us. And so they bought into the belief that we were there to harm women.
Yes.
They bought into that. And women bought into that and voted against their own detriment. Right. And so, but again, it goes back to, it wasn't us. It's not our problem to fix.
But
so dance in the streets.
I want us to lollygag. I want us to have a good time. I want us to really feel that joy. And to like end off this wonderful episode with you, because this has been a time.
Thank you.
Well, I have 2 questions. So first would be, what's bringing you joy? Like, how are you dancing in the streets, in quotations, like your version of it?
Okay. So I don't know. It's just that I've decided to really focus on me, right? What does that mean for me to be happy? There were times when I was living alone, because I've been living alone for a few years now, when I was just it just wasn't right. I was unsettled still. I wasn't happy. And I had to do the work on myself. And so, like I said, I had to be selfish with not just my sobriety, but like with who I am as a person. Sometimes people will try to get from you only what they need and then realize that they need more and more and more and more.
These energy vampires.
Right? And so now, instead of me just being by myself, I don't feel like something is wrong with me by talking into the atmosphere because now I talk to my plants. It's amazing that the setup has plants behind us, right? Because roses. I'm feeling like I'm at home.
Yes.
I'm feeling like I'm at home.
I grew up in a household full of plants too.
Yes. And it just brightens my mood. It does. Yes. Like the air is better. And then seeing them being vibrant, it means that I'm doing something right, you know? And so I'm taking care of something, another living organism outside of a human.
Do you have animals?
I don't have an animal and I love dogs, but I'm of the mindset that I'm not going to pay rent for this little shit eater. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. Okay. You know, so I'm gonna take care of another living thing, but it's not going to be an animal. It's not going to be humans because, like, as much as I love humans, humans are very detrimental to other humans, right? And so I can only be professional. And sometimes it feels performative in my professionalism because I know that I have a lot to lose, right? And I don't want to go back to barely making it to knowing, like, yes, I can survive, but what will I eat today, right?
Ramen noodles.
Ramen noodles.
That's
and
not
so
life.
I don't want to go back to that.
No.
So
that's college.
My plants and my herbs bring me joy, and learning these different line dances right now bring me joy, and cooking different foods.
What kind of food do you cook, real quick?
So I'm from the South. Of course, we're gonna always deep fry anything. Okay. Right.
And you're still deep frying.
And I'm still deep frying.
Oh, okay.
And so, but I will trade off with an air fryer. Yeah. Like now. Okay? So I'm trying to do even healthier, even with my fried foods. By doing air frying, right? But I love pasta. I love, like I said, anything Southern. Gravy. I'm learning to make different types of gravy.
What gravy are you making?
The gravy for my chicken, for my pork chop.
I have, so listen, I just made pork chop the other day.
With the Salisbury steak.
Yes. And I use a chicken gravy. Yeah. And I am also learning like different gravies. I learned how to make my own roux.
Yes.
Doing a lot of more stews. And also like making my own like pasta sauce.
I did chicken noodle soup while I was sick.
You did? I
did it.
Oh, you did all that while you're sick?
While I was sick.
I know that's right.
Okay. And so community members, like our community is so talented. Like that's the beautiful thing about being a part of the trans community is that there are all of these hidden gems out there. I have a friend in Atlanta. This girl can have a food truck any day of the week. She can have a restaurant any day of the week. Twisted Soul Food, shameless plug, love it to death, love you. Okay, yes.
Shout out to you.
Yes, love her. Right. Yes. And so like we're so talented, and some of that is hidden from the world, and we as members of the community get to experience that. So knowing that in the midst of everything that is aimed towards us to fail. Yes. That we're still resilient, we're still capable, and we're still sharing like our gifts with each other. Like that brings me joy.
That's amazing. Rooting ourselves in community. I think we're in a time where we're seeing ourselves go back to like kind of like that 80s and 90s vibe of like the girls are getting their moans from their homegirl.
Yes. You know.
and the girls are really like,
it's very much
communal.
It's like the Dallas Buyers Club all over again with like the HIV.
Yes.
Right. And so that's basically like when the federal government, when Ronald Reagan wouldn't even say the word AIDS, right? Yeah. And so by extension, by honestly like dismissing this real thing that's happening, you're putting people in danger. And so it's not that people are transphobic. Yeah. People are dismissive of trans identity.
Transmissia.
Yeah. So it's transmissia, right?
Yeah, it's coined by Hope Giselle.
I wish that people would like actively honor what it is,
Yeah.
because you have no reason to be afraid of me.
And it's not an afraid. It's just if they can bypass or not acknowledge something, they will.
They will. They will. If you give them the opportunity to do it, they will.
They will.
And so, yeah, but I'm not having that, you know?
Yes.
And so I also know that I don't have to accept what people are putting on me, right? So we said it, we're not a monolith.
Yes.
So what you think of trans people does not apply to me because you don't know me.
You know, because I'm not everybody.
I'm not everybody.
And the person-
I didn't sing that. Whitney sang it.
Hello.
She's saying she's every woman. I never
Look.
said that.
I know that's
Shaka
right.
Khan. Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan.
Yes. OMG. So, lastly,
Okay.
because this has been a blast to talk with you, I want you to give a message to the young trans girl out there, non-binary femme, whatever, about hope and joy. What is your wish for them?
Oh my God. One, I'm so happy that they're able to understand I'm so glad that you're able to understand what's going on with you at an early age. I didn't have that, right? So my hope for you is that you hold on to who you know that you truly are, and not let society dismay you or deter you from your true purpose in life. I just happen to be a woman of trans experience, right? But I'm so much more than that. And you are too. Like, that's not going to be the end all be all for you. There's greatness in you. There's greatness that hasn't even been tapped into. And once you find your community, your tribe, you'll see it. You'll see it too. But just know that there are people out there who are waiting for you and you alone.
And I always say to that, add on, take your time. Take your time. And if you are one of the girlies who want to medically transition, stay steady on your moans. Take that routinely. And yeah, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being open to the conversation. Thank you for bearing your soul. Thank you for feeling comfortable to get from all these camera lights.
It is a lot.
And do this. and you know, you hit it so well.
Thank you.
You're natural.
Thank you.
And I want to say, yeah, thank you to that. And to the folks who tuned in today to the Roses podcast, I just want to say thank you. I hope you took something from this. I hope you're fed. I hope you're well. I hope you take care of yourself. Do something today to help nurture you, to sustain you. And with that, I release you back into the universe. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.